peeping out the trees overhanging Little River and revealing the contour of the land as it rose toward what was then called Pecker's Hill, I realized this was the place I'd been heading all along, in the back of the family station wagon in the 1970s and across my career as a writer. This was the story I had been looking for. But how to tell it? Once a staple of 18th and 19th century versions of American colonial history, a tale compelling enough to be retold by such literary figures as Cotton Mather, Samuel Sewall, John Greenleaf Whittier, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and Henry David Thoreau, the saga of Hannah's captivity and revenge has been neglected by more contemporary writers and scholars, though it continues to inspire artists. In his introduction to a 1987 illustrated reprint of Mather, Whittier, Hawthorne, and Thoreau's accounts of Hannah's story, the editor Glenn Todd framed in scholarly terms the same questions I had grown up hearing. Is it right for Hannah to kill children because one of her own had been killed? Are Indians less human than the English? What is the meaning of murder perpetrated upon not one, but 10 victims who are asleep? Did Hannah kill the children because she thought that if she spared them, they would immediately rouse the Indians at a neighboring camp to pursue her? And is there a more important question? Is this genocide? Is this the ruthless extermination of the Native American race at its root, the killing of Indian children before they can reproduce? Are Hannah's acts only another instance of the barbarity that underlies all human history? The heart of darkness that cannot be escaped by paddling a canoe back to civilization. Lingering in the woods, with the cry of seagulls echoing from the river, it occurred to me that Todd's questions could not be answered through scholarly inquiry, at least not that alone and entirely of itself. Only through a carefully researched narrative rendering of the events of March 15th to 30th, 1697, would today's readers be able to get at the moral truth of what happened to Hannah Duston and what she had caused to occur. Besides that, it was a ripping good yarn, the kind that can captivate a broad audience. A writer might come across such a story once in his or her lifetime. My investigations also made clear that Haverhill's early settlers were engaged in an ongoing appraisal, and not in the modern sense an appreciation, of the landscape and its natural condition, mostly because of the drudgery and danger of their everyday lives. Therefore, Hannah was likely to focus on the threats and obstacles presented by her environment, as well as what she perceived as the overriding savagery of the region's native inhabitants. No doubt Duston surmised that her only response to these hazards was her own savage persistence. To further my understanding of that reality, over the past couple of years I have hiked, biked, and snowshoed large portions of the route that Duston's captors took after the raid. I've also undertaken overnight canoe trips on the Merrimack River in late March, enduring some of the harsh conditions Duston and her companions encountered during their escape. We didn't fear being overtaken by the Abenaki, but the river was vast, bone-chilling, and clogged with floating ice and debris. I based the chapters that depict Hannah's raw experience on my first-hand knowledge of that terrain, as well as the accounts Duston herself provided to Reverend John Pike, Samuel Sewall, and most notably Cotton Mather. In these sections of the book, I made no attempt to recreate dialogue or to imagine the thoughts and motivations of the participants beyond the obvious. But my own journeys indicated that the best way to tell Hannah Duston's story was through the landscape and through the lens of the prejudices, preconceptions, and preoccupations of the 17th century colonial settlers and the Indians. That first morning in the woods, with snow scattered about and the air wintry and raw for March, I traced a course outward, parallel to Little River, coming quite near to the place where Thomas Duston, on horseback, would have first discovered that the Indians were attacking his farm and family. By that time, I had spent more than a year poring over maps, studying the accounts of Mather and Sewall, conducting extensive research into colonial weaponry and farming techniques and militia tactics, and had come to know the layout of the original Haverhill settlement well enough to make a drawing of it in the dark. But climbing Pecker's Hill at the pace that the youngest Duston children would have